When I was still living in the Philippines, I went to a private school. I believe that most elders used to scare us little kids about most of the schools in the Philippines, which were either a cemetery or a hospital before it became a school. Basically, it's like telling us that most schools are haunted. I actually believed it when elders told me this, because even when I was still a little kid and when I started going to school, I started seeing things that other people can't see. Here's the layout of my school in first grade. When you enter the gate, the door is always open, and right when you come in, there's a big stage. We pray every day before we start doing our schoolwork there. That's why. Well, one day after school, me and my friend were sitting at the steps of the stage because both of our rides didn't even come yet. There was no one else but us in the building because most of the teachers were in a room having a meeting. While we were sitting there, nothing to do, we started talking about random things until it got to the point where we started talking about ghosts. Oh yeah, in the back of the school, there is a Catholic church, by the way. All of a sudden, something passed by the big door. At first, me and my friends didn't really notice what it was because we were too busy with our conversation. Then, all of a sudden, a big wind just hit us. But it was a sunny day. And then when we looked by the door, I saw a man who was dressed like a priest. It was headless, but the man was holding its own head. I thought I was hallucinating, but when I looked at my friend, he himself saw it too and was terrified. I told him, I don't want to talk about ghosts anymore because I'm scared enough already. But he didn't speak a word until about 10 minutes later. When he was calmed down, he whispered to me, "Do you see anything pass by the door? Something that's not really usual to you?" I was shocked. I told him I saw it too. I was thinking, what if someone was pulling pranks on us? But I didn't really think so. When you get out of the building through the door, if you look on your right, there is our cafeteria. Me and my friend were so anxious about what we saw, we decided to ask the cafeteria lady. But when we asked her, she just looked at us startled and jokingly, and continued to ask if me and my friend were insane or on drugs for us to be talking such nonsense. So it was only me and my friend who was there. I should mention there's more stuff that happened to us at this school, by the way. This wasn't the first time that I experienced something like this, or my friends. The Headless Horseman. To start off, I never actually got to see the apparition myself. My mother did. She told me the story recently, actually. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, the story starts out in a small town in Mexico. It's 3 a.m. and my mom was walking home with her friends from this dance they were attending. Along the way, my mom's heels of her heels break, so they all stop and sit down on a beach nearby to rest. Take note, this is all taking place in the mid-1980s. They stay there for a bit and talk about what a great time they actually had. They were laughing, having a good time when my mom notices out on the horizon, she can see a group of horsemen that appeared to be Native Americans, to which she thought is weird because there isn't any known Native Americans in that town or in Mexico for that matter. Well, she thinks that's weird but doesn't give it a second thought. They start to walk home, and my mom and her friends hear what sounds to be a bunch of horses and people shouting, "Yay, yay, yay, yay." They hear the buckling of the horse's feet, and they start to run because they hear it getting closer. As they were crossing a bridge, you need to get past to get home. They notice a man with no head, with a cowboy hat on, and medallions and jewels around his neck. It was scary because the man was dressed in these, like, black clothes, trench coat, and gloves. The freakiest thing was that the hat was floating where his head should be. They all stopped in shock, not being able to think. They just stood there. He signals his horse to do that thing where they buckle their front feet in the air, and as it did that, his medallions blinded them for a bit, and he disappeared with the Native Americans. Still in shock, they ran home and locked themselves in a room. The Headless Biker. This is a story related to a cousin of mine. This is about a place called the Kasara Ghat. The place is basically a valley which is very notorious for accidents that have occurred from early 1970s to late 90s. It's partially because the roads that were built on this valley were very small. It is said that two vehicles could not pass each other, and one vehicle has to always back down. And the roads were so narrow that if one took a swift turn, it would always end up crashed in the valley. The place is famous because it's the route to the holy temple of Sai Baba, which is known as Shirdi Temple. Thousands thrown to this place every day, as the saint was a very revered figure throughout India. Now back to the accidents, which were very popular back then. One of my cousins decided to go home to his shrine with his friend in his friend's car, because the first Arati prayer starts at 4 a.m. in the morning. Therefore, he started his journey around 11. The previous day, he had to travel by car the whole night. Around 1 a.m., he reached the Kasara Ghat. Now, this place has no streetlights, and all they had was the car's headlight, and to their advantage, it was a full moon at the time. Now, while moving, they saw a person on a bike honking for them to move aside. My cousin was a bit surprised because the roads were so narrow that the bike could hardly overtake them, so they didn't pay any attention. But the biker kept on honking, to which my cousin got really upset. He told his friend to slow down the car so that he can give him a sound tongue slashing. As soon as the car slowed down, my cousin started shouting at the biker, but what he saw shook him from head to toe. He suddenly saw that the biker had no head over his shoulder, and he was driving his bike as though he was a professional. My cousin got so scared that he started sweating and told his friends about this as soon as they saw him, and he whizzed past them and disappeared before their very eyes. All of them started chanting prayers and drove off. When they reached the shrine, they asked a villager about what happened to them exactly. He at once said, some years ago, a biker was killed while trying to overtake a truck. From that day onwards, people who have traveled through the routes often saw this headless biker. Legend has it that if you do not let him overtake you, you yourself would have an accident. I live in a village in Antipolo, the Philippines. This is where the generals and other high-ranking soldiers retire to. This happened when I was just around 14 years old. My friends and I were having a camping trip in an empty lot that night, and we love ghost hunting together. Just beside our village is a haunted village where only a few houses are there, and not at all are occupied. Inside this village is a long street surrounded by trees and weeds. We decided to go there this time. While walking through the street, we saw a white figure behind us. I asked them if they see the white figure behind us. One of them looked back and ran as fast as he could. Surprised and terrified, we ran as well. Outside the village, I asked the guy what did he see, and he said that the figure he saw is a white lady and already started moving towards us. After that incident, we never came back to the same street again. Back at the camp, everyone already started sleeping. I'm the only one who is still awake at this point. I can't sleep. So I decide to go home and check if someone is already awake to open the door for me. I checked the door and peeped inside the house, and everyone is still sleeping. So I stayed outside and waited for the sun to rise afterward. Suddenly, I felt an urge to look at my right. I saw a soldier around 100 meters away from me, walking and swaying side by side like a drunken person. It is unusual to see a soldier drunk that still has his uniform on because it's a disgrace to his superiors. I wanted to know who the soldier was, but I can't see his face. I blinked to make my sight more clearer, and not more than a second later, he moved from 100 meters to 70 meters from me. His body movements were faster this time. His sway had gotten even faster. Curious about the soldier, I managed to walk close to the soldier. His face still isn't there. And another blink of my eyes, he managed to move around 10 meters away from me. His body movement seems to be in a hurry, swaying even way faster than before. Then I finally noticed that the soldier I'm trying to see doesn't have a head. I ran back to camp and never looked back. I waited for the sun to rise. I asked one of the old guys in our village, and they said that the village used to be a burial ground way back in the Japanese era. Damn. For all we know, Japanese soldiers are known to cut their enemies' heads off. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed my story. Hey, feel free to add comments.